Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Jason is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. Thank you, Jason. I'm Vincent Finelli. We broadcast 2 hours from the United States, Monday through Friday. We are live 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. If you'd like to call us, 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Telephone listen line is up. 605-477-3249. It's up 24/7. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
I am well. You know, Guineith, we've got a number of things to talk about today, including Tommy Robinson, Jeffrey Epstein, however you want to pronounce his name, gardening. But I wanted to share something that I have recently experienced. So I was under the hood of a 2004 Mercedes, so it's 15 years old. And I pulled out the dipstick, check the engine oil. Well, there's a cap where the dipstick, and there's a dipstick handle, but connected to the dipstick handle is no dipstick. Mercedes, I think the accountants have run amok at Mercedes, and they've decided that there's no need for an engine oil dipstick. So I decided to look up how to check the engine oil. It's real easy. All you do is you get in the car, you make sure that it's been sitting for 5 to 10 minutes. Then you put the key in the ignition. Then you turn the key to the run position, not the start position, but the run position. I'm sorry, to the on position. And you press a button a couple times, maybe 5 times, and you get to a menu on the dash, and it says check engine oil, and then you wait. And then a few seconds later, it tells you whether you've got the right amount of engine oil or whether it's low and how much it's low. And that part, when it breaks, parts and labor to fix it is $225. But the problem is you can't look at the engine oil. You can't get any idea about whether you should change it or not by the color, the feel, the look, because there's no dipstick. And to make matters better, for the GDP, the generally dumb public who owns these things, or at least what Mercedes thinks, is the fluid for the transmission is called sealed for life. And what does that mean? Your life, its life, the life of the fluid? No one really knows. But what happens is there is no transmission dipstick that you can see. And if you get on the internet and you say, so how do I check the oil on my 2004 Mercedes E320, which is just their mid-sized car, or station wagon? Well, it'll say that you can't check the transmission fluid. Well, you can, because I got under this darn thing. I put it up on the lift, and I was determined to figure this thing out. Well, there is a dipstick tube. But what they did was, instead of putting it in front of the engine where you can see it and reach it and easily find it, they put it behind the engine. And they cut it off so low that you can't see it. So, and there's a cap that's black and it's sealed, so you're going to have to break the seal on the cap to get to it. But they say you can't check it. Well, you can, but you have to buy a dipstick. So if you want to check your engine oil, you have to buy a dipstick, and you can get it on eBay. The Chinese sell them for maybe $10, and you can get a transmission dipstick for maybe $15. So if you have one of these ridiculously enhanced vehicles that the accountants have made miserable to live with, you can get a dipstick for your engine oil and your transmission oil. But you have to check and make sure, because in 2005, Mercedes eliminated the dipstick altogether. So if you wanted to top off your transmission fluid, what you would have to do is you'd have to get under the car. And then what happens is you pull out the drain plug. And what they've done is they put a riser inside the transmission oil pan so that when you pull out the drain plug, if it has the right amount of oil, it will start to drip out of the drain plug. If it doesn't have enough oil, you have to fill it from the bottom through the drain plug. Now that's like filling your engine with engine oil from the drain plug on the bottom of the oil pan. That's how crazy it's become.
Just thought of that.
Well, it had to be the accountants. Yeah, we're having a little trouble hearing you, Guineith. Maybe you could speak a little closer. A little bit. Let me just. Can you do it again?
I can move the phone.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right.
Would it be a good idea to move the phone during the ad?
All right. Right there, what you did was the best it's been. So.
Okay. Yep.
So what I explained, and we have a delay. Let me tell you how much of a delay we have. We have about 0.6 of 1 second delay from me to GCN, probably another 0.6 of a second or more. So figure we've got 1.5 seconds to 2 seconds delay between you and me, Guineith. So people think that we talk on top of each other and we don't know what we're doing. It's because of the delay from continent to continent. So that's what's happening. But so what is your take? You've been under a car. You've been turning wrenches and sockets and ratchets. And what's your take on what I said about how you'd fill a Mercedes transmission from underneath? What's your take on that?
My take on that is, who thought of that one? That's a stupid idea.
Right. And the research that I've been doing, people have been trying to call the Mercedes dealer and say, I can't find the dipstick. I can't find this. How do you, they'll call the service department and say, I have this Mercedes that you guys sold. How do I check such and such? And Mercedes is no help whatsoever. None. And I happen to be looking at the service records over a 15-year period that came with this car. Mercedes service records. An oil change by Mercedes is $130. 130. I saw service bills on this car that are ridiculous. There's probably, if I added up all the service records, almost $10,000 worth of service records from the Mercedes dealer and the local import auto specialist, if you want to call him that, the guy that services imported cars. About $10,000 worth of repairs in 15 years, repairs and maintenance. That's crazy. Now, I know what the oil filter costs. Mercedes charges $29.95 for the oil filter. That oil filter, I buy an OEM oil filter made by the same companies that make them for Mercedes, and I pay about maybe $3 for them. So Mercedes charges 10 times more for the oil filter. So it's absolutely crazy if you have a Mercedes, you have to do your work yourself. As a matter of fact, right now, no matter what kind of vehicle you have, you've got to do the work yourself because it's getting so expensive. Just as another exclamation point, our son was repairing a light socket on a headlight bulb, just a plastic socket with the 3 little terminals on it for a standard current production, 2008 model Toyota. So it's this little plastic socket that attaches to the headlight bulb, the back of the headlight bulb, and has 2 wires on it. And that part at AutoZone, this little plastic connector, is $25. Now, that's before someone, installs it. So you're probably, if you have to have a headlight connector, and both of them were burned out, by the way, because they get too hot. They get too hot because they're designed poorly on a Toyota Tundra pickup truck. So now you're looking at to replace 2 connectors and solder them in place and use heat shrink tubing and do the job right. If you paid a mechanic, you're looking at $100 to replace 2 light sockets. It's nuts.
That's amazing. Here's a handy tip. I noticed this afternoon. I was at the public library in our nearest really big town, and I noticed that they had maintenance and repair manuals for automobiles. They had a whole section of maybe several hundred maintenance and repair manuals at the public library. I don't know if that happens at every public library, but it's if you're looking for a maintenance and repair manual for your particular automobile, it would be really, really useful to check if your local library has a maintenance and repair manual section. Because, you could potentially just go and photocopy the part that you need each time. Because It was really handy. The maintenance and repair manual section was right next to the photocopiers. That's a good idea.
Yeah, and sometimes the libraries decide that they don't need them anymore, and they will sell them at their annual sale, to the book dumping sale. I don't know what you would call it, but the libraries around here seem to think that they need to get rid of books, and they'll sell them for 25 cents, 50 cents, sometimes as much as $1. But over the years, I've collected a whole bunch of these automobile service manuals, the same ones you're talking about, Chilton's, Haynes, Motors, which is that's a type of a repair manual called Motors Repair Manual. So I have a whole bunch of these for the vehicles that we own. And also, class, if you're interested, sometimes it's hard to get them, but you can buy them on eBay. Now, I don't like buying the manuals that are on DVD, but sometimes if you're looking at a manual that would cost $1,000, and I'm not exaggerating, you might find it for $20 as a DVD. So, keep that in mind. But sometimes it's hard to make those DVDs work. But if you have I mentioned H. Ross Perot had a Porsche 928, and we have it. We have his old 1979 white Porsche 928 at our farm, and I wanted the manuals for it. And the manuals, if you put them end to end, stood them up on a bookshelf, as you normally would place these books. They're in binders. They're probably 15 or 18 binders. So it's like 3 feet wide, almost 3 feet wide for this one particular vehicle. And the price used to be, if you wanted to buy them on the internet, on eBay, $1,000 for the shop manual set for the Porsche 928. Now that's one vehicle. That's not all of Porsche. That's just, it's crazy. It's crazy. But if you go to the dealer and you want them to do anything, you're looking at $150 per hour to look or to turn wrenches. Then the parts get marked up exorbitantly. So owning a Porsche and having a dealer work on it is like for the Jeffrey Epsteins of the world, or Epsteins, or whatever however you pronounce it. Yeah. You want to bash Jeffrey Epstein when we come back?
Yeah, I'd love to give him a kill rolling.
Live in Australia, Guineith Isaacs. Jeffrey Epstein, however you'd like to pronounce it. Guineith, what are your thoughts?
The guy's a pedo. He's a monster. He deserves to everything that's coming to him. He's been known to have been running this pedophile cartel for many, many, many years. We're talking about back when one of his main customers back in the day, when he was POTUS, was William Jefferson Clinton. And probably also Billary as well. But definitely good old, what was it that he said? I definitely did not have sex with that woman. Mr. Clinton. It turns out that he had...
I did not have sex with that woman. That's what he said.
Monica Lewinsky, him, that one.
Right.
He had it.
Right.
You know, Jeffrey Epstein had this was a New York billionaire, okay? He had a lot of legitimate businesses. And then he had his side business, which was abducting children and putting them on his Boeing 727 jet, flying them out to the Caribbean, flying all of his friends out to the Caribbean, to this private island, which had a hotel built on it, 5-star hotel. And this plane became known as the Lolita Express because it, you know, he would fly little girls out to the Caribbean. I'm talking about girls from the age of 3 to maybe the age of 15. He would fly them out to the Caribbean, and all of his friends would rape them. And some of those girls never ever came back from that island. They were murdered on the island. The guy is a monster, and he deserves to be arrested. He deserves to have the book thrown at him, and he has been arrested. On Monday, he had an FBI raid on his New York City apartment. And personally, I did a YouTube video about this. I think it was on Tuesday. I did a YouTube video about it. Could have been Monday. I'm not sure of the time because there's a time difference as well. And but anyway, he got arrested by the FBI, and he's not been given bail. They're gonna lock him up. And personally, I think that a possibility is that they'll do a plea bargain with him. That they'll say, well, it's like this, you're looking at like 100 years in bail, but we'll let you out in 5 if you deal with us. You know, and give us the names of all the people that you've been dealing with. Personally, I think that's what's going to happen. Okay? That's not any sources that I have. That's just my own intuition, deduction, and logic there. But there's a thing. If you're a pedophile and you go into jail, you generally get specialed out for some special treatment. How's that? I just invented that word, okay, specialed. But I think that it's appropriate. You get singled out for some special treatment by the other prisoners, okay? And there's a saying that I say from time to time. I didn't come up with this saying, but it's a goodie, so I use it as don't drop the soap. And I would recommend to Jeffrey Epstein that he better definitely not drop the soap. Okay? If anyone wants to know what don't drop the soap means, you can look it up on your favorite search engine, and I'm sure it will tell you. Or I'm sure that you could figure it out for yourself. I think he's going to be singled out for some special treatment when he gets into prison because he is so infamous. He has had, like I said, just Bill Clinton alone, there was over 20 times where he's listed on the manifest of the aircraft. Now, the manifest lists the crew, the passengers, and the cargo on any vessel. And this has been the case, and it's in the logbook, been the case in ancient times where ship captains have had to list the crew, the vessel, the passengers and the cargo and any prisoners that they're carrying, and it all has to be listed in the manifest.
We'll be right back. So what does this have to do with preparedness? Well, I remember being at many a meetup in Springfield, Missouri, and the meetup group would say, why don't you teach us, how to do such and such, And I said many times, I'm really not interested in repeating how to store matches for 20 years in a jar. We've already gone over this so many times. What I really want to do is teach you how to think. And what this is about in terms of preparedness and relating to preparedness is if you think that the rich and famous are holier than thou. We're going to teach you otherwise right now. So Jeffrey Epstein, or Epstein, there's an article about him in NY Mag, New York Intelligencer, it says. And it says here, Jeffrey Epstein's Rolodex, a guide to his famous friends and acquaintances. So let me just mention a few of these names. Bill Clinton, as you said. Donald Trump. Next one, Alan Dershowitz, the attorney and Harvard law professor. And according to this article, 2 different women have said that they were trafficked by Epstein, and directed to have sex with the prominent Harvard law professor.
Dershowitz.
Okay.
And how many lawyers did he train?
How many lawyers did he what?
Yeah.
Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, Prince Charles' younger brother, is a longtime personal friend of Epstein.
Did you know
has
he's
been
gay?
directly accused.
No, that's Prince Edward, sorry. Sorry, that was
this is Prince and gay, pedophile, geez. Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, Prince Charles' younger brother, is a longtime personal friend of Epstein's and has been directly accused of having sex with at least one underage girl. Okay.
Oh my
Tom
gosh.
Barrack, Fire and Fury, his first book on the Trump administration, reported that Trump, Epstein, and a private equity manager and Trump campaign senior advisor Tom Barrack were set a nightlife of musketeers in the 1980s and 90s, whatever that means. I don't know. Mort Zuckerman, he's a media mogul. He's a former owner of the New York Daily News. His name comes up with Epstein. Woody Allen. Now, Woody Allen has been accused of interest in younger girls for a very long time. Woody Allen, the movie, I won't say star and I won't say personality, movie ilk. Larry Summers, he's the former Harvard president and President Clinton's Treasury Secretary, Larry Summers. He is a friend of Epstein-Stein's. Bill Barr, and he's the, the Attorney General. William Barr's father managed to get him a job teaching math at the prestigious Dalton School in the 1970s. So we have Bill Barr. And then we have Ken Starr. Remember Ken Starr, the former president's independent counsel? Yeah. He's involved. And Lawrence Krauss, he is the theoretical physicist who retired from Arizona State University under multiple sexual misconduct allegations. He's a friend of Epstein-Stein's. And then Harvey Weinstein. It's hard to get all these Steins and Steens separated in my mind. So there are plenty of people who are involved with Jeffrey Epstein. So he has powerful friends, big money, and these young ladies who are coming to the front now and are accusing him are saying that they were underage, that he would want these massages. He would pay them like $300 for a massage. He had these women who were his pimps, or I don't even know what the word would be. These women would go out and find these young girls and bring them to Epstein.
Well, like Oprah Winfrey and Barbara Streisand. That's two names that have come up. And that other one, oh my gosh, there was another lady as well, that her name just escapes me at the moment. But I definitely remember Barbara Streisand and Oprah Winfrey's name coming up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is how they operate. If anyone, has ever read the Bram Stoker novel, Dracula had this butler, and his name was called Renfield, and Renfield's job was to go out and find fresh blood for Dracula. and he would lure people into the castle, and then Dracula would bite them. That's the sort of thing you're talking about. And in the pedophile area, those sorts of people are the procurers, the ones who recruit the fresh meat for these people. This is their words, by the way. Okay, this is the words that they use. You know, they're called Renfields. Okay, and they're called Renfields after Count Dracula's butler. So that you know, the thing is what I think has happened, Vincent, is this. I think that this is absolutely tied up with the Tommy Robinson thing. Okay, that because Trump has been looking to get Jeffrey Epstein basically for many years, and certainly for the last 18 months since he's been president, because he sort of circulated with Epstein in New York City, and he actually went to one of Epstein's pool parties where there were underage children in the swimming pool, and as soon as Trump realized what was going on, he left. Okay? So President Trump is not actually implicated in the pedophile area. So I think that he's cut a deal with Epstein's people anyway, okay, because you can just about guarantee that Epstein had contacts on the inside of the FBI. There's no way that he did not get prior warning that this raid was coming, okay? But I think that he has been offered a deal that he gets put away for a reduced sentence of maybe 5 years, okay? And in return, this pedophile cartel gets Tommy Robinson. I have not read that anywhere. That is my pure deduction, okay? Because of the fact that Jeffrey Epstein was arrested on one day, and Tommy Robinson's case came up before the Old Bailey, which is like the British Supreme Court, on quite literally the following day. And he was found guilty, and he's going to be sentenced, well, he's probably already been sentenced Thursday British time, which is, oh gosh, probably right about now. And I think that Tommy Robinson, who, you know, his big crime was exposing a pedophile cartel. Well, gosh, gee, fancy that. And, you know, that, you know, that Prince Andrew happens to be tied up in all of this, you know, and that Prince Andrew is also, and the whole royal family, Rothschild, stinking heap of mess, has been implicated in this, you know, Muslim sex trafficking ring thing that Tommy Robinson exposed in his little area of Luton. Now, Luton is a working class area, okay? It's not a wealthy, rich area. It's an area where the ordinary people live. So, but he just wouldn't shut up. And he went and he insisted, Tommy Robinson insisted, that people take action to shut down this pedophile cartel in his area, because what he found out was that these Muslims weren't just raping little boys and girls, that they were actually murdering them and turning them into kebabs and selling the kebabs through their kebab shops. And that really made him quite angry, and he went and exposed them. So I believe that a deal has been done. Tommy Robinson, yesterday, that would be, Tuesday American time, or Monday or Tuesday American time, went on the Alex Jones show and appealed to President Trump for political asylum. And what I've been hearing from the White House regarding that appeal for political asylum is crickets. So I think that it's a really, really nasty, messy can of worms. Vincent, does that make sense?
It does. Now, you use the word kebab. What is a kebab?
A kebab is a skewer of usually bamboo, sometimes steel, sometimes some other type of wood, and it has cubes of meat put onto it. And sometimes things like tomatoes, onions, bits of capsicum, or whatever, and then you have this stick of meat and you put it on a barbecue, and you barbecue it.
Let me see if I've got this right. We're turning these sex traffic victims into shish kebab.
Yeah. Yeah. And the Metropolitan Police in London investigated it and found out that it was so. And they had no choice but to arrest these Muslims because they found the carcasses. There's no question about it. They were doing that. They found the carcasses of these children, and these men were actually doing that. They were actually cutting up these abused children, killing them, cutting them up and turning them into shish, selling the shish kebabs through their shop, through their kebab shop.
Gwyneth, what is it with these people that, I'm looking at their picture. Woody Allen, he's not a handsome guy. Let's see, Bill Clinton, he's not a handsome guy. Alan Dershowitz is not a handsome guy. Lawrence Krauss is not a handsome guy. Steven Pinker is not a handsome guy. Kevin Spacey, depends. Generally, no, not a handsome guy. Larry Summers, not a handsome guy. Ken Starr, not a handsome guy. So when you look at these people, Les Wexner, not a handsome guy. Mort Zuckerman, not a handsome guy. Now, these are my opinions, okay? So what is it with these not handsome guys that causes them to chase little girls? What is it? What is it? Do you know?
They're literally devil worshippers.
Let's talk more about that when we come back. This is upsetting. Talking about the horrors of Jeffrey Epstein. And Daily Mail has an article that says, quote, "It's a nice roll we are on," end quote. Interview resurfaces with Epstein and all of his female executives who were on call 24/7, paid $200,000, and flew on his private jet, among speculation that they procured girls for him. So there you have it. So he had 3 executives who he paid $200,000 to go find young girls. And that's what they did, according to this article. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine getting paid to find fresh meat for the Lolita Express? That's what we're talking about.
I would really like to know if any of these executives had any contact with Child Protective Services.
We've always speculated about Hollywood, and we've speculated about, the rise to success, these young girls who become television and movie stars. What did they have to do to get those positions? And there's always been that speculation. It's been called the casting couch. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's the truth of it. So I think that, like I say, it's a really deep and dark rabbit hole. And if there's anyone out there who has trouble getting their mind around how people can be so evil, this is the sort of thing that I had to escape from And by the grace of God, I did escape from it with my 2 sons from Western Australia. And we quite literally fled from Western Australia across one of the driest and most dangerous, most inhospitable deserts on earth, which is called the Nullarbor, okay? And we crossed the Nullarbor in a Nissan E20 camper van, my sons and I, back in the day, and the dog. And we were chased. We ended up in Victoria. We were camping in the Eildon State Forest, and we were chased. They eventually caught up to us in the Eildon State Forest, and they set a hit team on us in the Eildon State Forest. There would have been about 30 or 40 men, and there were jet skis on the lake. That's on Lake Eildon, with men carrying high-powered rifles. They had about 5 or 6 Alsatians that they set into the forest to hunt us. They had spotter planes, Red Devil spotter planes, flying overhead. They had aluminium pumps on the lake, and they were hunting us, and if they'd found us, they would have killed us in that state forest. But by the grace of God, they didn't find us. And that evening, we hiked 20 kilometres from the Eildon State Forest into the town of Eildon in Victoria, that's Eildon, and I had a backpack with some gemstones in it. There were $20,000 worth of gemstones in that backpack, and 18 months later, the backpack was found. My backpack and my son's backpack. Okay, 3 backpacks were found, and there was my driver's license and my Medicare card in the backpack. And you know, it was a West Australian driver's license, and they the WA police were the people who were chasing me. Because they were protecting these pedophiles in Western Australia. And, you know, that's what happened there. And I found out a lot of really, really interesting information, which is going to remain confidential as long as I'm safe, of course, and as long as I'm out and about in the universe. But that is what happened. And everything that I've said there, I've said in the public domain many times. You can go onto my Facebook page and go back through the archives of my Facebook page, back to the end of November, beginning of December 2012. And you can read how I blasted the WA police and their minions and goons that were wanting to kill us in that state forest. And of how as soon as I got within mobile signal range, I went on Facebook and I absolutely blasted them on Facebook. So that post is still there. So, and as soon as I did that, they called off their operation within about 10 or 15 minutes.
All right, we'll be right back with Gwen. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Guineith, I didn't want to mention this at the end of the last segment. I thought we might get disconnected. So here it is. What's up with royalty and sex? We have Prince Charles, married to Diana Spencer, one of the prettiest girls on the planet. And he goes for Camilla. What's up with that? What's up with homosexuality and these aberrations in the royal family? What's up?
As far as I can tell, They are descended from Vlad Dracul of Transylvania, the literal historical Count Dracula, and they have chosen to go with his side. And Prince Charles has quite literally bought Count Dracula's castle in Transylvania. And if you ask any of the native ordinary Transylvanians what they think of their lords and ladies, they will tell you that they hate them and that they've always hated them and that they wish that they would just go away because they have been vampires and child molesters and generally all-round devil worshippers for hundreds and hundreds of years. And some examples of that are Vlad Dracul himself. And as far as I'm concerned, there's been speculation on the internet, by the way, that Prince Charles is actually the reincarnation of Vlad Dracul because his facial features are so similar to Count Dracula's. They actually really are. We've got drawings of Vlad Dracul, and they look just about exactly like Prince Charles. And his cousin at the time was a woman by the name of Elizabeth Bathory. Okay? Now, Elizabeth Bathory believed in bathing in the blood of young virgins to maintain her youth. And she was also fond of making pretty garden ornaments by ordering her servants to stand in her courtyard in the middle of Transylvanian winter and then dumping cold water all over them and ordering them to stand there where they were until they froze to death to make, quote-unquote, pretty garden ornaments for her courtyard. These people have always been disgusting, and it's an absolute, shame doesn't even begin to cover it. Queen Elizabeth never should have married Prince Philip. Prince Philip is the direct descendant along the male line of Count Dracula. And if you look at Queen Elizabeth's mother and father, they were actually halfway decent people. And the Queen Mother especially, she was a really nice lady. And I know that because my grandmother was actually neighbours and personal friends with her when they were both young women together. They were literally next-door neighbours, meaning that my grandmother's estate, that was her grandfather's estate, where she used to go for holidays as a young child, was quite literally the next-door neighbour to Balmoral. And she met the Queen Mother when they were little girls, and, or it may not be Balmoral, it may be the Bowes Lyon estate. But wherever it was, I'm not quite clear on that point. But my grandmother was literally neighbours and best friends with the Queen Mother when she was a little girl up until about the age of 26. And my grandmother could never speak highly enough of the Queen Mother. She thought that she was a lovely lady, absolutely fantastic, But Queen Elizabeth, I don't know what she even saw in Prince Philip, because he wasn't even particularly attractive back in the day. He's never been particularly attractive, They're inbred. They worship the devil. They, they have this weird satanic, pedophilic, blood-drinking, vampiric nonsense for hundreds of years, and they're not going to repent of it anytime soon.
When you say that, the question comes up, how have they gotten away with this? How have they gotten away with child molestation for all these years?
I don't know. I would say that the people have just been really frightened of them. I would say that the British people have been fooled, okay? That they experienced a little bit of republicanism back during the English Civil War, but it all went horribly wrong because the guy that they got in was much worse than the guy that they kicked out and beheaded, which was Charles I. And Oliver Cromwell Charles I was actually not that bad as a king, but Oliver Cromwell beheaded him, and it turned out that he was a megalomaniac tyrant who began taxing people's windows and chimney places. You know? So that's why the English have not wanted to go back to a republic ever since. You know, but you know, I don't think that they will. But I think that if Prince William wants to have a long and happy reign, then he needs to renounce this whole pedophile thing. He needs to, right now, be working all that he can to assert the freedom, maintain the freedom of Tommy Robinson. I think that if there's anyone who could make Tommy Robinson free, that would be Prince William. And if he did so, he would win the hearts forever of the British people. But I think that he might be a little bit frightened of the whole Dracula crew as well. You know, because of what they did to his mother, they murdered Diana. There's basically no question about that. But he needs to grow a set, and he needs to stand up to them, and he needs to say, I don't care if I'm never the king, you're going to set Tommy free, and I'm going to take up his case. And that's probably one of the only people in the royal family who could stand up, because from what I've seen, Prince William's name just never seems to come up in these lists of pedophiles that I've seen. Okay? And apparently he's married, he's happily married, and, you know, his wife is a lovely lady, and he's got a couple of gorgeous children. He needs to look at those children and think to himself, if he wants for them to live in the type of Britain that is emerging because of the deeds of his father and his grandfather. Does he want for his beautiful children and his lovely wife to be ruling this country one day? And if the Muslims have their way, he won't be ruling it. He'll be deposed like the Shah of Persia. If the Muslims have their way, they hate him because he's actually a halfway nice, decent person. Does that make sense, Vincent?
Yeah, and so my question is, obviously, why, in your opinion, was Diana murdered? What, many of us believe that she was murdered, but why?
I believe that she was murdered because there was a multiple of reasons. One thing, Prince Charles wanted to marry Camilla and couldn't get a divorce. That's good enough on its own. And Princess Diana would not shut up about what they were all really like. That they were basically a family of deranged psychopaths. That's, if you look back in the history books, she was giving interview after interview after interview after interview. And I remember this because I was an adult when all this happened, and maybe a lot of people listening out there hardly even remember Princess Diana. But I was 22 when she died. I remember her well. And, you know, she had married into a family of deranged loons and who was Satanist on top of everything, and she wouldn't shut up about it. And I believe that she knew a lot more information than what she said publicly, and that she was going to reveal a lot more information. But then, on top of everything, she fell in love with Dodi Fayed, and there's been, reports or rumors circulating that at the time of her death she was 4 weeks pregnant with Dodi Fayed's baby. That's possibly another reason why they would want rid of her. But, Muhammad al-Fayed and Dodi al-Fayed, they might be Muslims, but they don't seem to have been the most horrible people. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, and also
they seem to have been
Diana's
trying to assimilate into their new country.
And Diana was an advocate spokesperson and spoke out against landmines. And she thought that the horrors of landmines needed to cause a worldwide ban on landmines because of the horrific injuries of people just who stepped on them. Yeah. And there was a lot of money to be made.
Of Jerry Savelle and all the rest of it, because she was hobnobbing with all the people in, the entertainment industry. She had friends, she had in her friends list Elton John and Michael Jackson and all these people who have been, sort of been implicated on the fringe of the whole pedophile thing. Okay? And so I believe that she knew quite a bit about what was going on with things like the Lolita Express. Okay? And she probably had figured out what was going on with Michael Jackson.
Gwyneth, we know that there are sick people. We know that they're pedophiles. We know that this happens. But we don't like to think that it happens at the top. We don't want to think that our government corporations are infected with this. We don't want to think that Silicon Valley is infected with this. We don't want to think that royalty is infected with this. But from your thoughts, do you think that there's a greater percentage of this sickness at the top versus the bottom 93% of us?
I'd say definitely, yeah. And that's just not only been my experience, but it's also been the experience of speaking with people who, and just observing people who are at the top or have access to people at the top. Okay? It's really, really sad. I've heard it said that children for the purposes of rape are like a currency to these people. And unfortunately, that is what I have, that's what I've observed. And I think that David in Illinois has got probably a parallel set of experiences, except for the fact that I was into protecting my children from this, and his father was not into protecting him from this. That his father was into, associating with these particular people. You know what I mean, Vincent?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if once a person gets involved with this ilk, that they can't get out, meaning you know too much, and if there's a slip of the tongue, well, of course you're going to have to pay the price, the ultimate price.
Yeah, that's how it is. I believe that's what happened to Michael Jackson. I believe that probably he, did compromise. He did molest some boys somewhere along the way, and possibly quite a lot of them. But in the end, his conscience got to him, and he turned against them. And that is clearly shown in his very last music video, which is entitled, All I Really Know Is That They Don't Really Care About Us. And if anyone can go on YouTube and look up that music video, and they will be enlightened as to maybe why the reason was that Michael Jackson was assassinated. And this is why, you know, when a lot of people say, oh, he was such a bad guy, I say, listen, he's been thrown to the wolves by the press. If you really look at his life, he ended up turning against the pedophile cartel in the end, and he was going to start exposing them big time back in the day, and that's why they murdered him. The stakes here are very, very high. I would not let them have my boys, and they tried to murder me, and they tried to murder my son in the Eildon State Forest, but we got away. And I've let
if you look at the if you look at the early days of the Beach Boys, the musical group, if you look at the early days of the Beatles, I'm talking about 1964, they were relatively clean cut, if not clean cut. If you look at all those bands, they were clean cut. But if you look at the end of the Beach Boys, they became pretty seedy looking. If you look at the end of the Beatles, they became pretty seedy looking. They went from having music that was fun to listen to music that was a little weird. And if you look at today's music, well, I can't even call it music. If you listen to people who attempt to perform in the music world, the women wear these scanty outfits. They're not... the Supremes didn't dress in bikinis and bend over. They could actually sing, and other groups could sing, and they had lyrics, they had an interesting beat, they could actually perform without stripping down to almost being naked. So now we've lost that, and I think that's what some of what you're talking about with the music industry and Michael Jackson. Guineith, you and I have been broadcasting for years now. And Guineith Isaacs is not your name. You've mentioned that it's a nom de plume. I'm not revealing anything that you haven't said before. So if someone were to look up royalty and Guineith Isaacs, they probably wouldn't find it. However, are you of royal blood?
I'm a British blue blood on both my mother and father's side, okay? As far as I know, I'm not related to the royal family, but I am related to a very, very prominent British banking family, very well-known British banking family, okay? And I'm possibly related to at least one United States president. Because one thing I remember my dad saying to me when I was a little girl about his family, which is the banking family, he said, we are all through Europe, and in France they have the French version of the name, which is associated with the diamond industry, and in Germany there's another branch of in France there's a branch of the family which is associated with high fashion, and in Germany that's the branch of the family that is associated with the diamond trade, and it's all one big family. When you get to the blue bloods, they don't have a country of their own. They just go in and they perform the function of being the nobility of all the other countries. Okay? So they'll have a French branch of the family, they'll have a British branch of the family, and they'll have a German branch of the family, and they'll have an Italian branch of the family, and an American branch of the family, and it's all one big family. And that's how the blue bloods operate. And my mother also comes from a blue blood family, and it was her mother that was neighbours with Elizabeth Bowes-Lyon. And that means that their vast estate was sitting next to the Bowes-Lyon's vast estate. Okay? So that's what I mean by next-door neighbours. And we're talking about tens of thousands of acres of land here. That is the type of estate that these people have. So that's what I mean when I say about, the families. But as far as I know, I'm not related to the royal family.
Okay, and when you say blue bloods, what does that mean?
Okay, that means it's a phrase that came a few hundred years ago. It doesn't mean police, okay? It means that we have a genetic trait where our blood vessels in our wrist are very, very close to the surface, okay? They are so close that you can see them directly underneath the skin of the wrist. And the blood looks as if it's flowing blue underneath the wrist. And that's a genetic trait that this particular lineage has. And if you get somebody whose wrists are like that, then probably they have some or quite a bit of blue blood ancestry. And that's the reason why they're called blue blood. But they are descended from a man by the name of Ashkenaz, and Ashkenaz was the son of Japheth, who was the son of Noah. Okay? Now, Japheth is the ancestor of all the white people. Okay? Shem is the ancestor of all the Middle Eastern and Asian people, and Ham is the ancestor of all the African people. Okay, and Aborigines as well. So, and you look at the world, and that is still how ethnographically they're more or less referred to. They're referred to specific people. They're referred to as being Hamitic people, and they're referred to being as Japhethic people. But the Ashkenazim, there is a branch of the Ashkenazim that actually married into the Jews when they went into exile in Europe. Okay, when the Jews had to flee for their lives from the Muslims back in the day, they went to Europe, and because they were very clever, because they tended to be goldsmiths and jewelers, they got to meet the Ashkenazim, and they married into the Ashkenazim. Okay, and I do have some Jewish ancestors, female Jewish ancestors, but I want to say to my fellow Ashkenazim, it is a big mistake for you to refer to yourselves as Jews, because you're not. And it actually says in the Bible, there's actually a Bible verse, I think it's in the book of Ezekiel, that says, "Woe to you that say that you are Jews and you are not." So although I say my name is Isaacs, I'm not calling myself a Jew. I'm not a Jew. It's because my husband had a Jewish surname, but he wasn't a Jew either. His ancestor just married. That's a whole other story. But he, through a marriage, he ended up with a Jewish surname when he wasn't really a Jew either. Okay, that's, I'm not going to go into the details of that particular story right now. But that's the reason why I use the name Isaacs. I'm not claiming to be a Jew. But there are a lot of British blue bloods and European blue bloods who claim that they are Jews, and they're not. They're Ashkenazim. They're descended from Ashkenaz, who is the son of Japheth. They weren't even from Shem. and Shem was the ancestor of Abraham, and Abraham was the grandfather of Jacob, the father of the Jews. Okay? That's how it is. That's just basic world history. Go and pick up a Bible and read it for yourself. But yeah, if you don't understand this sort of ancient history, you don't understand anything, and you've got no hope of negotiating what's going to come. If you want to negotiate what's going to come, you need to get a Bible and you need to read it, because that gives the details of all the things that have been and also all the things that are coming. And you'll be able to say it literally chapter and verse of what's coming, because there's a massive collapse coming. It's called the apocalypse, okay? And you can read about it in the Apocalypse of John. I believe that's what it's called in the Catholic Bible, right? In the Protestant Bibles, they call it the Revelation of John, or the Revelation of Jesus Christ. It's the last book in the Bible. And everyone ought to go out there, find a Holy Bible and read it, because it's that important. Does that make sense?
Yes. And so if you look at your wrists, Guineith, do you see the veins popping out?
Yeah. And I've had doctors and nurses comment, gee, your veins are really close to the surface. And I'll say, yeah, I know.
And does that mean that you are white?
I'm white. I'm white with copper hair. And not only that, in my series of reincarnations, it's appeared that I actually prefer to be white. You know, and that's not a racist comment. Because if you want to reincarnate lifetime after lifetime as a Maori or an Aborigine or an African or an Asian, go for it. You know? But some people, they just reincarnate as white people or Italians time and time again, or, French people over and over again. And some people decide that they're going to reincarnate all over the place. You know, and that's okay too. But it's a good thing to be white, because white people basically built the modern world.
Guineith, when you look at your wrists, the tops of your hand, do your veins pop out as well?
Yeah. They're all really, really close to the surface.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. I'm looking at my hands and my wrists, and my veins are popping out, and they look blue to me. I mean, they are really, really prominent. Really prominent. Now, is that what you expected me to say or not?
Well, it doesn't surprise me, because the Finellis in Italy have a reputation for being a really, really powerful family. Okay?
What family?
And, the Finelli family in Italy are a very powerful family. And they have been a very powerful family for many, many hundreds of years. And it wouldn't surprise me if there was a lot of blue blood breeding in there, because Italy has, Italy's got a reputation of running the world for a long time. And people forget that today, but it's still true. And much of the world is still run from Italy, and they forget that too, that the law of the sea is actually administered from the Vatican. That means the whole Admiralty system and all the road rules are all administered from the Vatican. Did you know that, Vincent?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Italians run the show. They still run the show.
Let me ask you, Guineith, based on what you know of me, and when I pick up the mantle and try to defend morals and values, is this something that I cannot help? Because it seems to just happen. I don't go looking for fights, but I find myself in a whole bunch of fights. And okay.
I'm with Dr. Shealy and Dr. Rick Miller on this one. Dr. Richard Allen Miller and Dr. Norm Shealy have both been talking about reincarnation and epigenetics. And I I listen to them and I say to myself, mate, you've hit the nail on the head. And even Alex Jones has started saying the same things. He doesn't believe in reincarnation, but I believe that he's reincarnated. I believe that he's the reincarnation of Winston Churchill. Because if you look at him and you look at a photo of a young Winston Churchill, mate, that's a spitting image. They could be twins, mate. And not only that, people forget that when Winston Churchill was a young man, before he got into politics, guess what he did for a living? He was a journalist. Did you know that?
Well, his oratory was spectacular.
Oh, yeah. He was a wordsmith first class. But he cut his teeth. And I believe that Alex Jones is the reincarnation of Winston Churchill. And he couldn't help himself. He just had to come back and fight this good fight.
And, Guineith, you are a wordsmith first class as well. And we come back. Tell us about your website. We'll be right back. So, Guineith, I've seen your work. You are a world-class wordsmith. Can you tell us about your website and your book, please?
Okay. I have recently published a book called The Lover of the Pirate King. It's available on Amazon.com, but if you email me or if you send me a message on Facebook at my Facebook page, which is Guineith Isaacs, and you'll know you've got that because there'll be, a couple of highwaymen and a highway lady at the top. And, you can get a copy off me, personalised. I won't be able to sign it because it'll be drop-shipped from Amazon, but I can have a personal comment on it for just $10, which is cheaper than you'll find anywhere. But I have to mention quickly, Vincent, my computer this week died. It's 13 years old, and it finally packed it in earlier this week. It's not the hard drive, it's the CMOS, the ROM BIOS chip. If there's anyone out there in the listening audience who would really love to bless me, then, if they feel moved by the Holy Spirit or whatever to help me out with about $250 to get a second-hand computer from the local pawnbrokers, that would be a big help because I haven't got a computer at the moment. I've got my cell phone, which has the internet, and I can still access my email, and I can still access Amazon, and I can still access, Facebook, but I can't write at the moment, unfortunately.
How about this? How about if someone wants to buy you one on eBay, eBay Australia, and have it shipped to you? Would that be okay as well?
That would be fine. If they want to do that, then they can ship it to our post office, Bendigo, 3550. That's BENDIGO. And if they just send me a email telling me what they're going to do, and I will tell them my real name so that I can pick up the post from Bendigo. Because at Bendigo, they have no idea who Guineith Isaacs is. Okay.
Guineith, is this...
My real name.
Is it appropriate to say... Is it appropriate to say that you have no money at this point?
I'm really, really financially struggling. And if you could buy books, that would really, really help me. Okay? And, we can get food, and I'm getting my vegetable gardening happening, but I'm really fortunate that I own my own home outright and that I fought my municipality on the property tax issue. Otherwise, I would really be sunk right now. But I fought the municipality on the property tax issue, and I've won because they put their foot in it. They put out a court order with a fraudulent judge's name on it, and the judge didn't exist.
Gwyneth, let me say it this way. So you have eliminated your property taxes. You have no homeowners insurance. You have no automobile, no truck payments, no car payments, no gasoline, no heat because you heat with wood. You get your rainwater from your roof. So you have your animals are your food. Your garden is your food, and roadkill is what you use to feed your animals. Is that correct?
Yep. Basically, yeah, that's about it. And,
okay.
and most of the money that I get from my little government check goes on food and trying to maintain an internet connection and a phone.
And that's it, period.
Yeah, and that's it. So, but like I say, if you could buy books, that will really, really help me. Okay, and if you don't want to read the bits that are a bit saucy, just skip over them because it's still a jolly good tale anyway. Mm-hmm. You know, and there's you know it's written so that you can skip over the bits that maybe are a bit spicy and you don't lose the gist of the story. You know what I mean? So it is a romance novel. It does have saucy bits, but you can skip over the saucy bits and not miss out the context of what happens in the novel because it actually does have a plot.
Have you considered writing? Have you considered writing about the Blue Bloods and what it's really like?
I have written about that a little bit. Maybe actually, I have written a book. It has not been published yet about my past life as Lady Catherine Ferrers. And she was a British blue blood. She turned highwayman back during the English Civil War. And, you know, so I have written a book, and that's probably the next one that's going to be published. Okay, but if anyone wants to email me, that's guiith@gmail.com. And if anyone wants to put me with a computer, you need to email me so that I can give you my real name so that you can send it to someone who can pick it up, which is me.
Guineith, thank you so much for being with us.
God bless you, and you have a lovely day, won't you?
God bless.